Did you just ask me who this man is? This is Ralph Waldo Emerson. Emerson was an American essayist, lecturer, philosopher, and poet who led the transcendentalist movement of the mid-19th century. His 1841 essay called Self-Reliance stresses the need for each individual to avoid conformity and false consistency and follow their own instincts and ideas. He made some statements we call the Maxims of Emerson. In this video, we discuss the credibility of these maxims back in the 19th century and the world today. The first one says, speak your latest conviction and it shall be the universal sense. Speak your mind. What do you think about that, Brian?
Okay, so basically, as I understand it, when Ralph Waldo Emerson says, speak your latest conviction and it shall be a universal sense, what he's saying is, if you want to be honest about what you're thinking, whether it's right or wrong, and you share it, it's simply an insight, a different perspective into the realities of the universe around us. To say it is right or wrong it's not the right thing to say. Like, you shouldn't be judging whether something is right or wrong, and if it's wrong, I shouldn't say it. If it's right, I should develop this idea. It's like, no. If you have an idea, if this thought crosses your mind, then to some degree it is part of the truth. You should share it, right?
Great. Okay. Cici, I would ask, do you think this actually works in the world today?
To speak your mind?
Yeah.
Sadly, I do not think it works in the world today. I do believe that, in a sense, like, you don't really know what's right, what's wrong anymore, and it's just a lot of social construct that you can't really tell, except we manage to create all these meanings from ourselves as humans. And so there's always this sort of standard and structure that we've created for ourselves in society, as in what is right and what is wrong. So, for example, if I say I think killing babies is a good thing, everyone is going to hate me like crazy, because it already in the world, it's already a terrible thing to say and it's a wrong thing to say. But technically we don't really know what's right or wrong. And I think that's probably what Ralph Waldo Emerson was trying to state, as in, it's in a sense, like Ibrahim said, it would be the truth whether it's right or wrong, but it unfortunately doesn't work in the real world, because that's not the way humans work.
Exactly. Now it's getting beautiful. The second one.
I mean, can I just want to add to that. Here's the thing. Why would somebody say a statement, we should kill babies? The fact that, like, Emerson is trying to say that if you're in a situation where, let's say, you have overpopulation, too many youth, not enough jobs, of course you're going to say, we should probably, cull some of these babies that, will not have jobs or will not have a future. Is it right? Of course not, but I think he's saying, if you speak your mind, you're going to be speaking about the reality of what's going on around you. It's the minute that you start thinking about something, and you start, like, the minute we think of anything, we start saying, is this something I should be talking about? And clearly, if you just say whatever comes to your mind, we can see the impact of that with the current American presidency, right? But here's the question. Is it a good thing to have somebody in power speak their mind and do whatever they want? I mean, that's what I would posit back to you. Is there something good out of this, or is there something bad coming out of this?
Well, I think that question has become a rhetorical question. Where you never get an answer in the end. Okay, so the second one says, society everywhere is in conspiracy against the manhood of everyone of its members. Society destroys individuality. When you think about the times of transcendentalism, they actually focused more on the individual, like, rather than institutions and everything. So, Cici, what do you think about this one?
Well, I do definitely think that this statement is in a sense true, especially in our current society. I just feel like if a statement is said or an idea is brought up, there will always be people against it, no matter what happens. There's always like a conspiracy theory in one sense of another about a certain topic. And the thing is, like, nobody can ever agree on any one thing.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
there's always going to be debate. There's always going to be discussions. And in a sense, yeah, it's true. Like, I wouldn't say society destroys individuality, but I would say that in a sense that society does always provide a sense of contradiction to what people brings up or what ideas people brings up. But Ibrahim.
Yeah, but I mean, this is the one bit that I'm going to disagree with you on syntax, right? So he says it's a conspiracy against the manhood of every one of its members. So what he's saying is it's not necessarily a conspiracy against the ideas of a person or what we call the trimmings of an individual, but instead he's saying that society functions with this idea that it's a great organization and you cannot view people as people, because the minute you do, they no longer fulfill a purpose. Because a human being in and of himself is pretty useless. He's pretty self-interested. He doesn't really work towards the benefit of anybody but himself, you know? And there are some people who are like, I don't want to share, I don't want to do this, or I don't want to do that. And what he's saying is, we've reached a situation where we're so intermingled in each other's lives that, and this reminds me of like a freaking ad for, what was it, like Kuwait Bank or something like that, where they were like, because of a drought or something, there was not enough water to feed the corn in the United States, what's it called? So the corn prices increased, which caused the market to drop, which caused strikes, which caused no corn to go to the chickens, which is why there's no chicken on the dinner menu tonight, or something like that. I think that's what Emerson is criticizing, is the fact that we don't look at these as individuals. We look at this person as like, this is what produces corn, or this is what produces an education, or this is what produces that. We sort of destroy humanity in order to benefit humanity. And he's like, well, what are you benefiting anymore if nobody knows who they are outside of the system? I think that's what he's trying to talk, because he's not talking about criticizing the individual's idea. He's talking about the lack of humanity.
Do you agree with him?
Do I agree with him? To a certain degree, yes. Because here's the thing: if you give somebody the freedom to express ideas, that's all well and true. But expression has become such a meaningless sense, because most people will express it through words. They'll express it through some kind of platform that thrives off of them gibbering and jabbering, right? But ask how many people, alright, how many of you have the chance to go out and act upon your individual ideas? How many of you have a chance to say, you know what, I don't want to be part of the system, I'm not going to pay taxes? And this is actually one of the things that Emerson got in trouble for, was he refused to pay taxes. Ask yourself this: do we even have the chance to not pay taxes anymore? Do we have the chance to remove ourselves from the system? We don't. So, while I might not be happy, I'm afraid I have to agree with Emerson on this point, because it's just one of the situations that we're stuck in right now. We've sort of created a system with no door out. You know, people fall through the ceiling and there are no doors. Might as well be a cage.
Okay, before we move on to the third one, we've got a special guest today. His name is Asad. And do you agree with this, Asad? Okay, he's not ready. The third one says, nothing lasts is sacred but the integrity of your own mind. Your mind is the only sacred thing. Cici, what do you think about this?
Yeah, mine is the only sacred thing. I'm sorry, Topes. Let me hold it like that. I kind of think, in a way, yes. As in, I do feel that your mind is probably the most private place that you can still be who you are, or an individual, because nobody, in a sense, is supposed to control what you're thinking, even though that's not really the case. Like, people get influenced in how they think all the time, but your mind is supposed to be that place where, in a sense, you can think of your own thoughts, your own opinions, and nobody, in theory, cannot access that point in that place, you know, except mind readers, which I don't know if they exist.
Speaking of conspiracy theories.
But yeah, so in a way, your mind is, I feel, probably the only sacred place. Because if I look at, like, society in a way is intertwined with everything else in society. It's just, nothing is really sacred anymore, like, as much as you try. Ibrahim, I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts on it.
Ibrahim, what do you think about that?
Why are you throwing shade?
I always throw shade.
Okay, so the integrity of your own mind, like the fact that you will speak, you will at least be honest with yourself and your thoughts, right? I would say, yeah, you're going to be honest with yourself. You're always going to have the integrity of your own mind. That's not something that someone can really take away from you, even though we have documented facts of, like, what was his name? President Truman? Not Truman. Well, one of them basically decided his daughter was being too troublesome, so he gave her a lobotomy. So, I mean, until we get mass lobotomies, the mind is the only thing that we still have control over. And the tragic irony is, not that this is particularly related to that statement, but if you're to talk about someone who has a mental disorder, do you think that they have access to the ability to regain control of their mind? There are plenty of people who, in the US alone, are struggling with concepts like depression or so on and so forth, and they're saying, I would like to get the treatment for my depression. Or even you come to Jordan, you're like, I am a person with depression. And what does the government say? No. Depression's not a real thing. You know? So even at that point where you know your own mind, you know that you do not have control over it and you want control, no one's going to enable you. Because people controlling their own minds and their own thoughts is a dangerous thing. Because you will still perform a function, even if you don't agree with it. But what's going to happen if somebody, like for example, somebody keeps telling you have to put your hand in the mousetrap. You know, it keeps causing you pain. Eventually, your mind's going to say, no, I've had enough. I've had enough. This is inhumane, this is degrading, this is whatever. I still have the ability to think those thoughts. But what frightens them is not that I have the thought, but will I act on that thought?
Yeah.
You know, so do we have the ability to control our own thoughts? Yes. If we're put in a situation where we are not in control of our own thoughts, we are not given the opportunity to try and gain that control, I feel.
Can I do a follow-up question
Yeah,
on that?
No, go ahead.
Like, okay, but how about like people with mental health issues as well, though? Because then people will deem them, say, like crazy and not entitled to make their own decisions because their mind isn't in the right place. What would you say about that then? Like, would that still count as, like, I guess something sacred, or they're still in control of their own minds in that sense?
Well, I mean, this is the point that I was highlighting. If we truly regarded our ability of our thoughts, our like ability to think, as something that is sacred, we would try much harder to get those people to feel like they're in control of their thoughts, to be able to deal with these situations. People who suffer from dementia or Alzheimer's, we would make a better effort of trying to help and understand their diseases. People with schizophrenia, or people who simply go through depression. You know, if every government truly thought that the mind is a wonderful thing and like everyone deserves the opportunity at least to control their own thoughts, we would have definitely put these at the forefront.
How about
but we
people
don't.
with like suicidal tendencies, and then they would go like, no, that's inflicting self-harm on yourself, and then they'd be saying like, you can't make your own decisions, you're obviously crazy, or things, because some people do choose to die, like, and in that sense, should we encourage it, or?
Exactly.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. if you're in a situation where you aren't in control of your own thoughts, nobody willfully wishes to die. It's just that there's something wrong where they're beginning to think of taking their own life. Nobody, unless they're in a situation where they feel like they're out of control. Like that goes right back to the first point. They feel like they're not in control. And that's why the act of suicide is sort of a desperate way of saying, I'm taking control of the situation. But there are so many other methods that could have been applied, so many things that could have been investigated to give those people control, rather than them feeling so desperate that there's nothing else but to simply end this loss of control.
But then if you control them more, won't that make it worse? Like if you say, no, you can't die.
No, not that we're saying, no, you can't die. But what we could do is definitely give them the access to a treatment where they could see whether it works for them or not. Some treatments work, some don't. I mean, this brings up an issue. It's not really related to Emerson, so like I don't think we should continue really developing it. But this brings up the fact that there are a lot of people who need medication for their depressions, and some countries will say no, medication is not, you just need to get over this yourself. It's not true. Medicine works for some, therapy works for others. You have to give people the ability to take control of their minds the way they deem fit, whatever works for them.
Yeah.
But like, the reason why I agree with Emerson on the fact that the mind is the only sacred thing is because it's the only part of us that we want, like we can't live without control over it. If you take away someone's control over their thoughts, their own mind, then they will they will wish death upon themselves. I don't want to be somebody else's victim of control. Nobody does. No one would ever say, I'm willing to hand over my mind to somebody else, whether it's a person or whether it's just a disease. Nobody wants to hand over their mind.
Yeah, that's true. I think going more into the other maxims, we're going to buttress this point you're just mentioning right now. The next one seems pretty simple. It says, my life is for itself and not for spectacle. Live your life for you and not for others. So this seems pretty simple, and it seems like one thing that many people and people like with influence, musicians and politicians and people have been trying to emphasize on these days, like living life for yourself, not for spectacle. Although many people these days too, with the coming of the media and everything, they've been like living life just for what people are gonna, how people will see them and how people take them, like comes into mind first before they think about anything else. So, Cici, what do you think about that one?
Well. I do believe you should live your life for yourself and obviously not for the entertainment of others. However, of course, as you said, for example, in media today, it's all about entertainment. It's all about getting the attention, and it's sometimes, some people love attention, like humans just love attention in general. And thus sometimes I do feel people do try to live a life that is just, in a sense, to get attention from other people. Even like, I don't know, even sometimes when you just talk to your friends or something, and then you can sense that they're just trying to seek pity from you rather than just, for example, ask for actual advice, In a sense, I do feel like that you're not really living your life because you want to become better, you just want it for the attention and the sympathy of others, I mean, a lot of people do that. I think that in this sense, that people just need to be more confident and more self-loving of themselves, because I think that's just the best way to do that, even though I know it's hard, like we're humans, it's these things will pop out. We would want attention at one point. And at one point, of course, we're gonna do things for the entertainment of things. But as long as I feel like a majority of your life you are living it for yourself because you do love yourself, that is the most important thing.
Exactly. Thank you for that. That's amazing. And I know you've got something to say about that too.
Believe it or not, Cici pretty much spoke my mind.
Exactly, yeah.
We agreed on something!
Where's the confetti? Fireworks! No, like I do agree with her. Like, we tend to fall into the habit of attention seeking, and like therefore we make a spectacle of ourselves. And it doesn't help the fact that we're living in an age that really encourages it, even to the point of like monetary encouragement, where if you make enough of a spectacle that catches enough attention, you get money. Woo!
Yeah.
Let's encourage spectacle behavior. No, but I mean, yeah. In truth, a healthy life is a private life. You know, it's one where you choose the very few people you wish to share it with, and it's not always happiness and rainbows. It might be terrible stuff. It might be good stuff.
Yeah.
The point is, you're sharing it with people who aren't there just to give you some kind of commentary. You know, you're sharing it because you actually value those people's opinions.
Yes.
And you're not doing it just for attention. And that's what CC says. Sometimes we do. We're human beings.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
but a healthy life isn't one that goes attention seeking.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, I would definitely love to post a picture and get lots of likes today.
Yeah.
Okay, this next one is actually
Mono.
Yeah.
Wait, I need to add, that's why doing high-risk media is so hard, because, you know, we don't do it for the attention.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
You can explain to them what
Yeah,
high-risk
we
media
do
is.
pass the message. Hybris Media is the same online media company we all work for, and we actually pass messages and try to reach as much people as we can, you know, by actually passing credible messages, right?
Yep.
The next one is actually pretty interesting. It also goes in line with all of it. It says, "A foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds, adored by little statesmen and philosophers and divines. Foolishness is adored by others." Hey Brian, I want to start with you on this one.
Okay, so what Emerson is basically saying, I feel, what he's saying in the statement is that this is just a criticism of what's called conservative politics, and the reason why he mentions statesmen, philosophers, and the divines, and he mentions this as the hobgoblin of little minds, is because someone who's not thinking of a solution to a problem, not thinking about it truly, is someone who wants things to stay the way they are.
Exactly.
And only an idiot would say that things are perfect. You know, either you're an idiot or you're so frigging rich that you're living in a different planet, you know, where you're not really affected by these things. So, like, he's saying that if you're a person who doesn't think about the future, if you're a person who just doesn't think critically or think holistically, you're not putting into picture the fact that things do need to change. Sure,
Exactly.
you might end up costing something that you already have,
Yeah.
but really there's no way to progress without taking a risk or a gamble.
Yes.
You know, only a petty thinker adores the fact that everything is going to stay the same. You know, only like what's life currently like for the American people? Let's say just because they're so popularly known around the world, right? Look at the past 100 or more years of American politics. Who are the only people we hear about? Democrat and Republican. Do you know that there are independents, that there are plenty of other political groups that could exist, and yet in the United States they're like, no, are you voting Democrat or voting Republican? None. They're both morons. You know, why don't we see something new? You know, why don't we see the Communist Party of America come out? I'm not biased at all. Something change. Why don't we see different ideas of schooling like pop out in the U.S.? They thought the idea of making it better is to throw more money at it. Has it worked? No, because they're using the same stupid ideas. You know, and if you see something doesn't work, why don't you change it? But people are like, no, we don't want change. We like the way things are. You know, it's the same as like when you make a really good video game or write a really good book. You're like, we want more of the same. You know, make another version of this. You know, don't make something new. God forbid.
That's a foolish consistency, and I would like to hear Cece's view on this.
I pretty much agree with Ibrahim too. I think it's...
We're on
Let's keep this up. No, I do believe that in a sense as well, it's like as if he's talking about people that are more close-minded, as in they don't really want to hear all the different opinions of why they should change, why they should develop, why this. It's because kind of they're comfortable in their own bubble, and I do believe he is criticizing the current political situation at that time, because he did mention statesman, philosopher, and stuff. Obviously, there's at that time a certain sense of following that they feel comfortable with, and I feel like a lot of people just don't want to change. No one wants to change. Everyone hates change. Like everyone hates change. It's just
comfort
a very
zone.
Exactly. It's uncomfortable for people to get out there, but I do believe that people constantly needs to change. You cannot just stay the same forever in your lifetime. Like everything needs to change eventually, and people need to realize that I think it's really important for people to understand that you need to get out of your comfort zone for everything, every element, every aspect in life. Not only like us individually, I mean like even the political system, even I don't know, even like structures, even buildings, you know, things always change. We're gonna have to develop in time, and like there's no, it's inevitable.
Yeah,
Love my English.
It's
It's edible. But yeah. So yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah. Okay, great. We all agree on that one. The next one says, an institution is the lengthening shadow of one man. The ideas of an institution are deceptive. Well, this kind of like speaks for itself already. I don't know. I know you guys got interesting views on this one, but I personally think that institutions are definitely actually lengthening shadow of one person. What do you think?
Am I allowed to hold the McDonald's cup?
Yeah.
How dare you bring sponsorship to this? Hashtag not sponsored. McDonald's, we are open to sponsorship.
Yes. McDonald's.
There's McDonald's at. There it is.
We too support all the fans. So, an institution length and shadow of one man. The problem is, I know too many points in history where there's contradictory ideas to this. If you read Steinbeck's Grapes of Wrath,
Steinbeck's book, they're dealing with the idea of a corporation seizing the property of farmers, right? And they didn't know who to hate because there was no one individual to target their anger towards as they were losing their lands to these corporations. So, like, that's one point that goes against it, but at the same time, it's sort of a work of fiction related to something that was really going on. Now, Emerson's words pretty much are very evident during the time of John Edgar Hoover as part of the FBI, because Hoover pretty much used the FBI to his own advantage to do his own things. You know, you had a bunch of FBI agents who were considered faceless, maskless agents of one man. You know, and so I can understand when he says an institution is a shadow of one man, because we can see it now, especially in politics now. More and more institutions are sort of just masks or facades for an individual or a few individuals who are gaining, like doing what they want and gaining some benefit through this, while claiming the institution is based off of ideas, especially ones that deal with the benefit of others, you know, but it's really not the case. You know, even if you look at NGOs, which are cropping up everywhere, or just even your own like government institutions. The fact that we have corruption as a word that's so prevalent in these institutions is because individuals are the ones who are running them. They're not run off of an idea or run off of anything like that. They're run by individuals, and usually for the gain of certain individuals.
Yes.
Just look at the freaking housing, the Ministry of Housing in the Department of Housing in the U.S., where, what was his name? Ben Carson, the sleepy, dopey idiot, spent thousands on his own personal furniture, right? Because it's technically housing, what his department is known for.
Okay, yeah, well, that's pretty credible. What do you think, Sissy?
I hate institutions.
She hates it.
Yep, that's it. No, I'm kidding. No, in that sense, I do agree with Ibrahim as well. But I think, what Emerson is trying to say, I would agree in that sense that I do feel institutions are mostly controlled by an individual. Like, there are people always running these institutions. There are people who are funding them, who are charging them. Like, for example, if we look at Rupert Murdoch, he runs like all the media institutions. Like, all media is biased. All news that he runs is biased based on his ideas. Like, and supposedly we're supposed to get objective news, right? But that's not the case. And we're all run on institutions here. And they are all run by people who have money. And thus, I hate institutions. I'm so hippie right now.
Well,
Free love.
I think we all agree on that one too. The next one sounds like the lyric to a song. Okay, life only avails not having lived, live for a purpose. Okay, I want to start with Cece on this one.
Okay. Okay. Life only avails not having lived. Okay. Well, in this sense, okay, so my deal with this statement right now is just because I feel that nobody really lives a life. I mean, as I think based on everything that we've talked about as well, a lot of the life that we live is a controlled life based on a system that we've created for ourselves. I think in a sense that life only avails not having lived is that it's sort of trying to represent that, as in we are somehow always controlled in a way, and we can't actually live our life to the fullest because there's always that sense of control, and maybe we would want to do one thing but we can't do something because obviously there are rules, there are structures and things like that. It's just how your institution or government runs your life. For example, we have to pay taxes and stuff. I mean, I prefer not to pay taxes, but that's not the case now, is it? Or the fact, like, I don't have money, that means I can't do probably half of the things I would love to do in my life. Like, say I'm an adrenaline junkie. I want to go out there and, like, jump off buildings and skydive and stuff. Like, life doesn't allow me to do that 100%, for example. But also, I want to state a really important point here is that I also feel that people do not live until they know what it's like to die. Like, that is also an important point I want to state, because look, even if we have money, even if we have all these things, I do feel like generally people will never actually live. But because people don't know what it's like to die, so they don't appreciate life. They came into this world living. People take life for granted a lot. And I think people need to, however they want to live, they need to really think about it and appreciate what they have. That's mostly what I want to say, because a lot of people don't appreciate their life. So.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that. And you kind of covered most of the things I also had in mind. Ibrahim.
Okay. we're back to conflict again. Okay. The other segment of this was the idea of living for a purpose, right?
Yeah.
Now, I would agree. Yeah. We're caught in this situation, or most of us feel like we're caught in this situation where our primary goal is to keep ourselves alive, right? Our primary goal is to have a house, have food, whatever necessities we were convinced our time in history requires of us, in order to stay living. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we feel alive. Sure, an adrenaline junkie or doing things that are self-fulfilling purposes is still a purpose. But I feel like what Emerson is also trying to hint at is that if you leave no impact behind, then your life might as well be meaningless. If there's nobody who feels affected, personally or just publicly, by your actions, you've left nothing behind of you. You might as well have not lived. And I feel like that's what he's criticizing here. So many of us are used to this idea that we work in order to keep ourselves comfortable, fat, and happy, and live long. But we don't actually work to leave something behind. And that's one of the things that I took off this, like, people need to live more towards a purpose, to have something that they could leave behind. Sure, it could be something that's still very personal to them. They could be like, I want to be an adventurer and like travel around the world, but if you leave nothing behind of your experience, what was the purpose of all that traveling? It's not cheap to travel. It's not easy to travel. Why don't, if you record your adventures, if you just simply record your insights, you've lived a purposeful life. You've given something back off that life. It wasn't just something that you took with you to the grave. And while that might be a very romantic idea, it doesn't hit the full point that Emerson's trying to hit here. It's like, don't just live for living. Live to give something back.
Yes, exactly. Thank you very much for that one. Yeah, you want to please do say.
In that sense, I do think that is what Emerson is trying to say in Ibrahim's defense. But generally, I don't think that people actually live. That's my conclusion of what I was trying to say before. People just don't live. And also, I do not believe that you need to live for a purpose. That's just me. But
This is the point of it, where we actually get different views on it. We all are not completely the same. We have different things that makes up our identity anyways. So the next one is also pretty simple. Says, insist on yourself. Never ever imitate. Be yourself. Never imitate. Okay, I'll go with Ibrahim on this one. You can just
be yourself. Don't do drugs. Stay in school.
Yeah.
Fight the power. I mean, I feel like this is really something that needed to be said in the 1800s. And really, I mean, I don't know, I'm not a child, man. I'm not into imitating people anymore. Yeah, I feel like this is something we just get past.
This age, this is the only thing you see out there right now. People are just copying other people.
I think they're stupid. That's my problem.
But sorry, I'm gonna say this. Like, one of the problems we're facing in the world today is conformity. Conformity is like the only plague that we've not been able to get out of the world. It just keeps increasing, and everybody wants to wear Gucci designers and all these things. Everybody wants to be like things they see on TV. Ladies want to be like Kim Kardashian. They see like this perfect body and everything. Conformity, the conformity cannot, it's this thing that just cannot change in the world. And I think this is what Emerson is trying to say. Like, insist more on yourself, because the time of transcendentalism, they focused more on individual, the individuality of every person, like what makes a person, focusing on the person more than how people conform. These things actually are things that are actually in the world today. It's very evident, obvious. What do you think, Sissy?
I mean, obviously, I feel like this statement is pretty self-explanatory, as in he wants people to speak their own mind, be themselves. I think a lot of things that Emerson says is a kind of criticism towards the current political and system and society within that time. So I do probably think that he is against the current political system where everyone is just always following the government, having to do this, having to do that, and he's just like, I mean, he just sounds like your, usual protest, hippie, philosophical, like yours truly. So, and I mean, and of course, I do think that people should be themselves, and that's of course easier said than done, obviously.
Exactly.
I mean, Ibrahim, wait, go talk.
Yes. I mean, the only thing that I've got to address about this is Toby used a specific kind of word, and he says, people want to be these things. I don't think it's the fact that it's a bad thing that somebody wants to be whatever. The problem is that people don't know how many options they have.
Yes, exactly.
And we're talking about beauty standards. There are so many different things that people in the world consider beautiful. You just throw a dart at any part in the world and be like, oh, it's beautiful. I mean, have you looked at freaking Korea? What they're doing with eyebrows? Okay? So, talking about be yourself, okay, you can choose whatever you want. But the only thing is, I would suggest, don't limit your choices. Exactly. Read some books, watch some TV, listen to the radio, talk to foreigners, okay? Just broaden your horizons, and suddenly you won't really feel like you're copying others, because you're taking what you like and leaving behind what you don't, it's not necessarily a bad thing to be inspired by somebody else's actions, you know, but I mean, Kim Kardashian's overrated.
So everyone's beautiful just the way they are, and there's no such thing as a beauty standard.
Exactly, there is no such thing as a beauty standard, so everybody's beautiful. And I like the fact you actually ended it on the note of Kim Kardashian. So, okay, the last one. Says this is actually interesting. I really like this one. It says the civilized man has built a coach, but has lost the use of his feet. You know, I've had this maxim for a long time in my head, and I see it every single where I go. Like, we've actually really lost the use of our bodies like that. We built a coach, and we actually lost the essence of our physicality, our physical self. Cece, can you start with this? Please, I
Can you value?
yeah, definitely. Brian can start with this.
What happened to feminism?
This is feminism. Giving you a choice.
I mean, it's the same thing that Ray Bradbury mentioned, and Ray Bradbury's a technophobe. It's like technology has become so intrinsic in our lives that it's taken over our ability to be normal, you know, to act naturally. And thankfully, we haven't truly hit. But technologies keeps trying to improve itself until the point where we do feel like it's easy to be taken over. Like, does anyone still remember Google Glasses? Right? How many exactly? What happened to Google Glasses, right? You know, and that's the situation where people were so excited that the future is now, and then they found out that the technology kind of sucked, you know, and now it's become VR and augmented reality. And you know, I would ask these people, without trying to sound like the Unabomber, I'm not going to send like bombs in your mail. I would just ask these people, how many of you actually have done something without technology? How many of you just gone to a frigging forest?
Yeah.
Right? When's the last time you went? When's the last time you walked barefoot? You know? We've just gotten so used to technology. And granted, giving up technology is a pretty dumb idea, because plenty of it does keep our standard of life and health up. Yes. But when it comes at a cost of how you shape your personal identity, the fact that I spent so much time indoors, I have a vitamin D deficiency, I can probably blame due to the fact that I played video games as a kid and hated the sunshine. I never went out as a kid because I had something else. You know, I had the coach there. I didn't need the feet. You know, I didn't need to go out and entertain myself like what 2 generations ago did. I just stay at home, right? So, is technology a bad thing? Yes and no. It depends on how you're using it. Just don't cost your humanity through technology. You know? Don't have all your personal relationships be on the phone. You have phones and you have internet now. Why don't you meet these people in person?
Yeah.
Right, Cease?
Yes, you know how much I hate this. As my track record of replying people.
There you go. Like, if you can use technology to bring you back to a situation that's normal, that like is human, where you talk to people face to face, you take a car and drive out to whatever wilderness is still left before the urban development takes it over. You know, this is a good use of technology. But if you're using it to cut yourself off even further from normal things, then you're going to be stuck in a coach and lose your feet. You know, nothing stays strong or useful if it's not used.
Yes, exactly. And when you think about this, like, the world today has become a place where, you know, we've got so many platforms where you can actually even do more. You can meet more people. But now, you know, because we have too many, technology has made it so easy, so much that when there are too many options, you find it difficult to even pick. Like, even meeting people these days has become so simple that it's as simple as just swiping on your phone. You just swipe, and you even lose you lose the opportunity to even like talk and get to know people closer to you, like physically around you. Like you actually lose this thing.
We're not sponsored by Black Mirror, but there is a Black Mirror episode that tackles this very concept. Hashtag please sponsor us, Black Mirror.
Cece.
Please Netflix.
Let's see what Cece has to say.
Okay. I agree with Ibrahim, but there's something Ibrahim said that I really like, which is don't lose your humanity in this, which I think is kind of the main point. Because when I look at this statement, it's not only for, say, technology, but I see every time humankind has developed in a way, they somehow lose some sort of sense of their humanity. As in, you build buildings and high-rise towers, you lose, I don't know, the sense of like going out and just sleeping on a tent or something, or in the wilderness. You build, for example, even this like stove, you build this stove and then you lose the sense of like creating fire, for example. I just feel that like the things that we did in the beginning back in our time that made things like so precious and us feeling human are usually gone by the time we've created all these things, and that's what I feel like people are losing. So technology is one of the biggest impacts and influence that's happened in our lives that we can see prominently, but in a way we're always losing all these things every time society develops, and which is great. I think society should develop, and it's great for us, you know, but we also need to somehow like savor what humanity we have left, and I think that's what people should remember.
Okay, thank you so much, guys. This has been really interesting. I would actually love to keep going and going and going, because you guys got too many information, too many beautiful, enlightening information. Yeah, beautiful beards. Yeah, beautiful faces. This is amazing. and we'll definitely try to talk about a few more things, maybe in more videos. But right now, I think we kind of covered the Maxims of Emerson, and you can also check up a few other videos that we'll be putting up there about other poets and other writers and stuff. And also, if you think that any of the things we said today are not something you actually agree with, you can definitely just drop a comment or argue it or send a message or do whatever on this page.
Do not send us memes. We will send them back. But most importantly, if you like this stuff, please
share it.
Like, subscribe, and please support Hybris Media. We really need your support. Support.
Share this video, guys. This has been amazing. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Cecilia. Cecilia is the founder of Hybris Media.
Disagree.
And we both work at Hybris Media, and this is Hybris Media's official cat. So have fun, guys. Peace.